We are live, Joe.
Excellent. Excellent. Glad to be live. Glad to be talking hoops on the first day of Division One men's and women's basketball practices around the country. I don't think our loyal Hawk fans need much of an introduction, but I'm Joe Lunardi from the class of '82, and we've come a long way from in-person Hawk Talk events. I'm not sure Al Gore had even invented the internet, Jill, when we started them 30 years ago, but happy to welcome St. Joseph's Vice President and Director of Athletics, Jill Bodensteiner. Uh, Obviously, there's been a fair amount activity at our beloved alma mater here over the last couple of weeks, and uh, Jill, instead of asking, what did you do on your summer vacation?
Yeah.
Maybe I should ask, uh, what did you do when you got back? And things were moving on the men's basketball front. I know some of these topics were addressed when Coach Donahue was introduced to the media, and not everybody got to see that video. And this is an opportunity for you to speak directly to our fans.
Yeah, thanks, Joe, for being here with me tonight. And thanks everyone who's on. I know it was a pretty short turnaround when we sent this notice out. So I'm really, really pleased to see our passionate fans on here tonight. So Joe, we did a press conference, and I'll be totally honest, we had massive technological issues and it was not our finest showing. So the reason we're doing this here is because we didn't have an opportunity to share that press conference with our fans. So we will introduce Steve via a setting like this, likely with you in coming days or weeks, but wanted to take this opportunity to talk to our passionate fans and answer some questions because, in large part, because we weren't able to broadcast that press conference. So I will
Well,
appreciate that.
before
Oh, yeah.
let me just have you pause there and say while Jill's bringing us up to date, if folks want to load up the Q&A function down there in the lower right center, we'll go back and forth and play off of that as well. This is not going to be a static. This is a conversation, a town hall format, and we want to hear from folks.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joe. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you. And by the way, the Hawks men's soccer team are up 3-1 right now out on Sweeney Field. So, all good wishes to them to finish this one off. So Joe, I'll start the story when it started for me, which was on Sunday, September 7th. And I got a text that morning from Billy Lang that said, "Can we meet and have a heart to heart?" And we came to my office midday Sunday, and we spent a couple hours together. And Billy told me that he was in conversations with an NBA organization, did not have a formal offer, but wanted to give me a heads up that he was in deep conversations, and it had all happened very, very quickly. And he expected that it would continue to happen very, very quickly. So that set in motion our behind the scenes planning. Billy got his formal offer that Tuesday night. And then, of course, within 12 hours, it broke. It broke on social media. I think Pete Thamel might have been the first. So my regret in all of this is that we didn't get to the guys fast enough,
Yeah.
and that just there's no other way to say it than that stinks. And I'm after action looking what we could have done. It's Billy didn't tell his sons until Tuesday night. And so, we had the team gathering, but it broke just before we were able to get the team in together on Wednesday. So that's never a good start to a transition, is to have the team find out on social media, which some of them certainly did. So that was an unfortunate start to it. And then from there, let's see, where are we? That was Wednesday when the news broke. You know, had the we always have a contingency plan. So I had conversations on Monday. I spent a good deal of time with Steve, um, in sort of an interview process and talking through with him what he saw, what he felt, what he thought he could do with the team, and then made the decision and moved promptly to announce Steve on Thursday.
Did you have any inkling at all that something might because I know you and Billy have a very close relationship. Obviously he's within his rights to not reveal things. Um, but a lot of folks are asking both publicly and privately, hey, put St. Joe's in a tough spot. And my
You know,
interactions with him, I know he didn't want to do that, but things happen when they happen.
yeah, I mean, obviously, Billy and I have a very strong relationship. I think one thing, many people would say that maybe it was too strong, but I think one thing that people might be surprised at is how much Billy and I pushed each other. I mean, we got after each other in some very difficult discussions in some very constructive ways. And so, it wasn't all hugs on Sunday. I mean, I was obviously it's tough
Mm-hmm.
timing in many ways. Joe, I'd be interested in your thoughts, right? Bruce Pearl resigned yesterday.
Yeah.
And is there, Wofford made a coaching change. So there are three open Division I coaching within a week of the season starting. And is there some thought that this is the better time to do it? Because if Billy would have done this in March, we'd have a lot of players in the portal. Right now, every single person on the roster is 2 feet in. And so, because I mean, I think they love Steve. They respect Steve. They're excited, but it's also a tough time to transfer because you get a 30-day window when your
Mm-hmm.
coach leaves, but you have to get admitted somewhere when everybody's
Right.
underway. And then you have to meet what's called NCAA progress toward degree with a certain number of credits in the fall to be eligible to play in the spring. Then you have to have someone with a scholarship open, and then you have to have someone with NIL money that matches what you're getting here. So it's a tough time for athletes to leave. And I'm just curious if you think like the Bruce Pearl decision and transition was cooked up long before, or is this the new timing?
I'll answer that, but you directly addressed one of the questions that's come in via the chat, and that's what's the status of the roster, and that's certainly a headline item here. And I think I heard you say that everyone was 2 feet in. Can you,
Yeah,
kind of confirm that and maybe just kind of
yeah.
speak to the general tone of things with the guys?
Yeah, I gathered the guys together after Billy met with them, and Billy met with his staff, met with the team. There were a lot of tears, both sides. Billy's an emotional man. The players were emotional. Billy has his twin sons are freshman managers, and Will Lang is a junior. And I would tell you that Will Lang is one of the most respected student athletes in our entire department. He's a special young man. He's a culture builder. The guys on the team absolutely love him. But that adds to the dynamic when three of your brothers, if you will, are the
Mm-hmm.
sons of the subject of the news. So gathered that team together that afternoon, and I stood with Steve in a circle in the new practice gym and nodding heads. We got this, guys. We're picking each other up. Let's not waste time with anger and speculation. Let's move forward and try and win an A10 championship. And
Mm-hmm.
I immediately got calls from, I'm friends with Deuce Jones's camp, Torian Jones from Notre Dame. So I spoke with Torian. I spoke with um, Jaden Glover's uncle. Steve worked his way through every uncle, agent, parent, mom, within 24 hours, had individual meetings with the guys within 24 to 36 hours, spending quality time with each of them. And what I see is a roster who wants to get better and wants to go win. And Joe, this
Yeah.
is probably a good time when I talk about the culture in our department. And I think sometimes people think, oh, Jill's talking soft again about, intangibles, but we have 475 athletes. We had 13 undergrads enter the portal total across all
Mm-hmm.
21 sports. I mean, that's unbelievable. People like it here. People love your university, our
Mm-hmm.
university, and they want to stay. And in this day and age where I think IU and Baylor lost 13 men's basketball players alone to the
Mm-hmm.
transfer portal. So obviously we've lost some key players, but overall I think we've done a heck of a job retaining them. And I would expect to do the same with the majority of our roster during and after this year.
Uh, Good to hear because nobody wants to start over. Uh, right? You win 20 games back to back, and that's a big deal. You want to keep the trajectory moving. Your question to me about is this the new world order, if you will, in Division One? Yes and no, right? I mean, I suppose if you had promoted Will Lang, it would have been more like the Auburn situation. So we're not quite there yet. And just as an aside, having traveled a little bit the last couple of years with Will, you're right, and he's hysterical. But we'll try not to, give away any inside confidences. But I think yes, the manipulating of student athletes, if you will, by maybe less scrupulous coaches or administrators, and clearly that was not the case at SJU, and I don't want to speak for Bruce Pearl, but yeah, this is not Dean Smith handing it off to Bill Guthridge in whatever year that was, 1998, to try and take care of his, multi-generational assistant. We're going to see all kinds of crazy circumstances. I think more likely amongst the big boys than than schools like St. Joe's, because generally speaking, right, the coaches at our level aren't the ones getting poached by the NBA,
Yeah. Yep.
right? I mean, yeah. Anyhow, back to Q&A because it's really picking up.
Yep.
Um, and getting into uh, scheduling. So I'll try and combine a bunch of questions here, and we can talk about scheduling in the micro sense, and then if need be, you need me, I'll try and address it in a macro sense. But some comments about why multiple non-division ones on the schedule at one end of the non-conference, and at the other, talk us through the whole players era contractual situation, what that meant for us, and whatever you can tell us about what happens next.
Yeah, Joe, let's talk about Players Era first. You and I were talking before we went live, and for a school like St. Joe's to remain relevant, and that is certainly my plan, our goal, and I have every bit of optimism that we're going to do so. We're going to have to take some chances. Look, the gap between the haves and the have-nots is growing literally by the minute. And I could go on and on about the Power Four and how they're taking control of all voting at the NCAA level. So you have to take some risks. And so every single contract that the Players Era sent out to every team in the tournament contains a clause that they are able to cancel it if your coach leaves. So guess who is in Players Era? Texas A&M. Guess who's no longer in Players Era? Texas A&M, because Buzz, what's his name, Williams, left
Buzz
Texas
Williams.
A&M to go to Maryland, and Maryland is now in the Players Era, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that the Knicks are in the Players Era because that's not legal, but
Not yet.
you got to take some risks. Like, would you take we had I think an 80% chance of playing in the Players Era and getting that NIL money. We knew darn well what we were signing. We knew that it was non-negotiable with every team who entered the Players Era. That was something they said was important to their investors. And frankly, we never would have had that contract in front of us if it wasn't for Billy Lang and his relationship with Seth Berger. So we took a
Mm-hmm.
chance, the same chance Texas A&M took. And, the possibility that Billy was going to leave in September and the possibility that they were still going to cancel on us was getting slimmer and slimmer, frankly, as we got closer to the event. And then it happened, and they did what they said they were going to do, and it absolutely sucks. But I get this sense that people think we were snowed. Those were the rules of engagement, and if you didn't
Mm-hmm.
want them, you were out of the Players Era. I talked to my colleagues at Notre Dame who were in Players Era last year. They signed the exact same contract.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, we have a contingency plan. I'm excited to announce it soon with our two opponents who will be familiar names based on the schedule we thought we had. And so we are a signature or two away on those contracts from announcing them. And I'm excited to do so. And that was the plan. That was plan B all along.
This may be inside baseball, but that was not originally an MTE multi-team event. The larger bracket of the one we were originally in was in order to add both, there have been some questions to add both of those teams, if all agree. Does the math work
Yes.
without it being an MTE? And for those
So,
unfamiliar,
yeah,
you can play up to 31 if at least two games are considered one for scheduling purposes as an MTE, correct?
correct. And so, Joe, when we were moved from the Players Era MTE to the Showcase event, we immediately contacted the NCAA to get a waiver that allows us to play 31 games no matter what. And so the NCAA has granted us that waiver, and we are proceeding to reschedule teams
Mm-hmm.
with that waiver in place. So we had all our contingencies covered. We can play up to 31, even though we're not in an MTE, thanks to the NCAA waiver that they granted us.
Got it. Got it. So could be all's well that ends well. And we'll just stay tuned for more news.
That's right. That's right.
So that's the top end of the schedule, presumably. Uh, brand name schools, high end competition, etc. Uh, what about the lower end? There have been years where St. Joe's has had, a Scranton or a Wheeling, or I even remember Widener and others at non-Division One. It surprised some folks that there were two non-Division One teams on the schedule. How did that happen? Is it a question of availability, time? I'm sure it's all these things, and we have to buy some of these games too, right?
Yeah. So, Joe, do I love the fact that we have two D3 teams on our schedule? I do not. No one sets out, at the beginning of every year, you have a framework, right? You've got an MTE, that'll be 3 games, hopefully, or 2 games. You've got the Big Five. We can pencil those number of games in. How many home and homes do we want? How many games are we going to buy? In other words, guarantee games. And this is not the formula we set out to meet at all. And so when you look into the complexity of scheduling, and I'd love for you to
Hmm.
share some of your wisdom as well, but you've got a couple factors. Number one, I'm not sure even until I really got into the women's basketball selection committee that I understood the power that the net wields. And so the net is used obviously by the selection committee for at-large bids, but the net is important for many, many reasons. If our net, if anybody in the A10 becomes a quad four game, that is very bad for the A10. And anything above quad four, or anything above 161,
161 if you are the home team.
the home
Yes.
team. Okay. So there's this pressure,
241
incredible.
away, I think.
Okay. Incredible pressure to impact your net and sort of not game your net, but to go into your scheduling with a strong sense of what it would do to your net. And so, in an ideal world, we've got some games that we're buying, we're paying guarantees to teams to come our way. Traditionally, our league has not want us to get bought.
Mm-hmm.
And so if Duke's going to offer 200,000 for us to go to Duke, that's not been something that has excited the league office. So that takes off a scheduling opportunity. And then you're looking at home and homes. So home
Mm-hmm.
and homes where no one's buying anybody. And those are really freaking hard to get when you're coming
Yeah.
off a net 76 year like we are coming off of. And
Yeah.
so schools that want to play us in home and homes, we busted our butts. We had no great options, or they had insisted they start at their place, and we wanted more home games. We had a couple schools back out on us after we thought we were pretty far down the road, and then you're stuck with. I mean, teams are demanding now astronomical fees to come to your place.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could either pay that fee or you could pay a D3 school and a lot less and put that money into your NIL. And
And it
so,
doesn't count on your net.
and it doesn't count on your net. So believe me, this is not a formula that we're going to follow. But we stumbled into it this year, and I understand. We had the back end of Virginia Tech. We had them in Philadelphia last year. We had to return there this year. There were just a lot of factors that led to that, but that this is not the new norm. It is the new norm for some Atlantic 10 schools, who are playing D3s more regularly than we have in the past.
And do you make a distinction D2, D3? I mean, it doesn't matter from a committee net
And
selection standpoint.
sorry, no, I don't make a distinction. Non D1s, I should say.
Yeah. Uh, Applying that, in the macro world, my world, if you will, uh, there was a time when the committee really did look askance, if you will, at non D1s, unless it was, Kansas versus Chaminade in round one of Maui,
Yeah.
right? Or Duke
Yes.
versus Alaska Anchorage in the old Alaska shootout days. But, that's when the scheduling maximum was 26 or 27 contests. And now we're into a larger number of contests. And I would say that because it helps the big boys complete their schedule, there seems to be less angst among committee members when somebody decides, Kansas wants to play Emporia State
Yeah.
on the Saturday before Christmas. Like no one complains, says they don't get in if they're 27-5 instead of 28-5,
Yeah.
right? So I would say in general terms, if a St. Joseph's played one non D1 a year on average, it would have no negative long term impact on their tournament prospects. Jill, you know about this because we've talked about it, and I don't mind sharing it because it's easily publicly researched. But I work with St. Mary's out west, and he plays a non D1 every year over Christmas. That's just what he wants to do.
Hmm.
And this is a mid major that probably has more at large bids in the net era than anyone ever
Yeah.
has. And it's even harder to get games out west because there's fewer schools, in busable kinds of arrangements.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not going to lie. When I saw the schedule, my nose went up in the air the wrong way, the same as everybody else's. But
Yep.
I could have guessed why. And, what I would say if St. Joe's was a client and not my school, I'd say, let's not make a habit of it
Yeah.
because then
Amen.
it's going to become a
Amen,
reputational thing.
Joe.
Oh, they're the school that ducks. Like we generally not ever been that.
No, I couldn't
And in
agree more.
recent
That's
years,
well said.
you've been pretty generous with buying games.
Yeah.
I mean, that has
And
changed dramatically.
yes. And is that going to be able to continue
You're
as the
right.
price to buy games skyrockets at the D1 level, and
Yeah,
we've got an immense, an extraordinary amount of pressure to generate revenue for NIL.
right.
Those,
Yeah,
we may not be able to have to go more home and homes. And I think Steve is a big fan of the home and home. And so no
yeah,
money's changing hand. We can get some great
yeah,
local schools and Midwest schools. I think we're going to have to start early and do our best to get in on more of those. They're hard to come by,
yeah.
um, but that's going to be, I think, our trend going forward.
And when you talked about the impact of the net, I would say if one were to go back, let's say the year that everybody remembers, right? Oh
Yeah.
04, 27-0 regular season, number one ranked non-conference schedule, playing exactly one ranked team in the non-conference because the RPI calculated schedule strength much differently, and it was better to play teams from lower leagues with great winning percentages. I would always use the example with Don DeJulia. We want to play Old Dominion at 22-7, not Clemson at 15-14. Uh, and now it's almost reversed. You're better off playing way up or way down, right? You're better like 2 years ago, we're better off playing at Kentucky and hosting, well, Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Ideally, you win the Corpus Christi game, but right, you're better off doing that than
Yes.
you are playing two Old Dominions
Yep.
in the new world. In the new world, and that has flipped in the last 2 decades. And I've seen, well, Billy and Rob Sullivan trying to navigate that over the last few years. And yeah, Joe, I think the price of the games and schools needing that money for NIL is
Yes.
going to cause another flip, and it's almost definitely going to result in more road games.
Yeah. And
Uh,
I will tell you that I mean there's a couple questions here that I couldn't agree more with. That the Atlantic 10 has become a little more uh if you convince them, they will allow you to go get bought. And so I think that's a new approach. We have convinced them a couple times. I'm seeing a few questions you hear about. We got paid to go to Kentucky.
mm-hmm.
But the default answer is no, and you have to make an appeal to convince them that it's a good thing, including they would say, and you would say, schedule the best teams you think you can beat. And so we would have to convince them why we think it's a good matchup and why we think we have a
Yeah,
chance. And so we've gotten a few of those through, but I couldn't
and in
agree
some
more.
cases you have to take the risk,
Yes,
right? And that was
yes,
an MTE. Yes, it was, right, because a couple of home games came with that.
yeah,
So it wasn't
yep.
simply a calculation around Kentucky. I don't think.
That's right. That
Uh,
that was a that's exact. You know what? Thank you,
it
Joe.
was
I
an
forgot that
MTE.
was an MTE. That was an
Yeah,
MTE where we got two home games out of it. And
yeah,
so, and then a game at Kentucky. So that's why the league allowed that, is because it was
yeah,
technically an MTE. Yep.
yeah.
Thank
One,
you.
one, and there was a year 100 years ago we went to Duke as a one-off, but it was an ESPN season. There was sizzle involved with it, and it was also a different commissioner
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
at that time. All good questions. I'm trying to
Great
scroll
questions.
through because we could do a week on scheduling.
Yeah.
Uh, let's go back to that beginning part of September when this transition was kind of dumped in your lap and you decided to elevate Steve Donahue. Like, what was your thought process? Again, I'm kind of combining questions here. Uh, did you even consider having some kind of a modified open search? Were there other staffing considerations? I guess he's got a spot to fill,
Yeah.
or maybe has. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, Joe, I considered everything, right? Everything's got to be on the table. That Sunday night, I was at my whiteboard for almost an all-nighter, picturing the scenarios. If you do and look, I know what the guys thought of Steve, right? That's an advantage that
Mm-hmm.
I've had, is I was with them all summer, talking to
Mm-hmm.
them, hearing things before I even knew Billy was leaving. Like, whoa, I just had my best practice on the
Mm-hmm.
practice Steve ran, and wow, like our offense is going to look very different, and holy cow, like what he's bringing to the table. Like I knew the excitement, right? And so, and then if you do a full search right then, you've got probably a 25% of the pool that you would have at any other time,
Yep.
because most coaches are going to say, pound sand, I'm not leaving
Yep.
my team right now.
Yep.
And so, do you want to do a full search knowing that, you're not going to have just the full complement of qualified and interested people? And so the confidence I had in Steve, the opportunity I had to get to know him over the summer and watching most of our practices, knowing what the guys thought of him. And look, we've got a roster that's intact right now, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that would be the case. And so, not that it was a short play, but part of it is just I love what we spent this summer building. And
Mm-hmm.
there were a lot of possible ways I could have gone. And I feel like we landed with the right coach at the right time for us.
Uh, I mean, you must have a kitchen cabinet of sorts. At least Dr. McConnell, if nothing else, we all have a boss to answer to, and it's been men's basketball for a long time has been a major asset of the university. Um, how many people did you have to answer to in that short window?
Yeah, I mean,
Donors, trustees, presidents, colleagues at the VP level, all who are
I
stakeholders.
mean, as soon as my list of people to call was probably 30,
Mm-hmm.
and did so immediately, as soon as I could share whatever information, and worked very closely with Dr. McConnell and made sure we got to uh, a number of people that shouldn't be blindsided by the decision or the news. I generally don't. I think one of the things I don't look at message boards. It's not, frankly, a great space to spend because people will say whatever they want and they just don't have the facts, right? And so that's not, it's just not a good, healthy space for me. But I think one thing that I've heard was that, the donors are making the decisions. I don't consult donors in advance. I mean, just to make that clear, I'm not calling and asking for opinions of it. That's just not something that I do. But you better believe I'm calling, board members who we
Mm-hmm.
report to, and significant donors to let them know the decision. And Steve has reached out. I bet Steve's made 250 phone calls in his first week, and Joe, he is incredibly accessible.
Yeah.
So I think they're, to be frank, I think Billy and I needed to be more accessible. I think we had a little bit of, I know I personally had some PTSD from the rough
Mm-hmm.
times we went through. I mean, look, nobody wants to win more than me. And living through those losing seasons was the hardest thing I've ever done, until my mom got very sick. But those were bad years for all of us, and it
Yeah.
probably put me a little bit more underground than I should have been. And I'm excited to get out more. Steve's excited. Steve was at the alumni reception on Friday night, and at the Kinney Run and at the field hockey game. And I mean, he spent the entire weekend out meeting people. He was at the university golf outing today. So I can't wait for our fans to really get to know him. He's a genuine human being. He's a St. Joe's guy through and through, and his basketball mind is off the charts. And I'm excited to talk a little bit about what we can expect on the court.
Well, let's do that for a minute. First, at the kind of micro level, what are your thoughts for the season? I mean, like 6 weeks from right now, I'm finding looking for some wood. 6 weeks from right now, we're 1-0. Uh, and so there's that. There's right now, there's Hagen, there's the schedule. We've got some questions about fan experience. But, in your chair, in this day and age, and some of this will come back maybe to the national picture, where do we fit? What is success for Division One basketball at a St. Joseph's University in 2025?
And Joe, do you want to give the pie answer first, the challenging
Uh,
reality, or do you want me to
yeah, maybe I should give the bad news first,
give the bad
right?
news?
I mean, it's just the news, right? 365 schools right now today are starting with a goal of playing in April, right? And 68 of them are going to get picked for that tournament. 31 of those spots are spoken for, so it leaves 37. Uh, of those 37, since the institution of the net in 2019, year before COVID, 7 or 8 of them, 7 or 8 spots have gone per year to schools outside what's now the Power Four and then the Power Five. So those 7 or 8 spots, and that also has to include the Big East, right? So now cut that in half, and let's say every year it's 3 or 4 or 5 spots for everyone else, at least the ones who don't win their conference. And now we've seen the last couple of years, even the Atlantic 10 has gone from a high of six bids to occasionally one. I don't think it's a permanent condition for the Atlantic 10, but nor are we going back to five or six in our lifetime. That's just not reality. And, all right, let's be realistic. Of the 250 some 300 schools left, 100 of them either aren't trying at this level or
Correct.
they're simply not affiliated in conferences where they have any chance at all. Like a league that has there are, a dozen leagues that have never gotten an at-large bid, period. So my back of the napkin, back of the envelope math is 4 spots for 200 schools. And we're in the 200 trying to get to the four. So that's where you get to tell us how we're going to do it.
So the goal remains the same. I mean, I'd be crazy to say anything other than we want to get a bid to the NCAA tournament because I believe that and I believe that we can.
Mm-hmm.
And so over the past 6 years, there have been a couple very frustrating and a couple that I think we showed significant signs of life.
Mm-hmm.
But behind the scenes, we've been totally dedicated to building an infrastructure that allows us to compete. So what do I mean by that? And this is not a knock on any predecessor. This is a recognition of the fact that college basketball has changed overnight. I mean, it started changing, but the transfer portal and the NIL decisions of 2021 changed the landscape completely. And so, you don't have a chance of recruiting and retaining rosters unless you have the capital facilities.
Mm-hmm.
And so the investment that Mr. McGuire and so many others have made, and it's not just the shiny new practice facility, which is unbelievable. It's redoing the coaches' offices, it's redoing the
Mm-hmm.
men's and women's basketball locker rooms. I mean, that all took time. And before that, when recruits came to campus, they were seeing deficient facilities. So that's been a huge part of it. Staffing, like believe it or not, it takes a lot of bodies to
Mm-hmm.
recruit and retain and develop student athletes. When I arrived, it was a different world. We had two
Mm-hmm.
strength coaches and a very part time for 500 athletes. And that's not going to get it done in this day and age. And so it took time to get the resources to add a Eric Lang for men's basketball, who has nobody but the men's basketball student athletes,
Mm-hmm.
and add an athletic trainer who's dedicated to the men's basketball student athletes, and the same for the women, by the way. Um, Operating budget, building up our operating budget because recruits want to know how you're going to travel and they want to see the gear. And
Mm-hmm.
so we've made incredible strides in building that infrastructure, and now we need to win. And I'm not big I'm not big on we have a fraction of the NIL that some other schools have because we can beat those schools. I really
Mm-hmm.
think we can. Um, and so, I remain 100% focused on getting this team to the NCAA tournament. And so let's talk about this year and who we've got the recognition that with the four schools fighting for 200, we might have to most likely win 4 games in 4 days
Mm-hmm.
or 3 games in 3 days, right?
Yep.
And are we built to do that when guys are playing 38 minutes a game for 3 straight days? We are not.
Or
Like
three
that's
straight months.
for three straight months. So this year's team is deeper. There are 12 guys who can and will see the floor. This team is very tall and big and athletic. And we're going to play a very different style. I mean, Steve and Billy together, and now Steve have been implementing a style that I think our fans are gonna love. We are going
And
to
this
get
was going on before.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
A lot
This
of
is what
people
the summer
don't understand that, I think.
And that's the other thing, really building a whole new a defensive approach and a new offensive identity. Like that was like the implementation of that was underway all summer. And Steve was the architect of much of it. And so, from a continuity perspective and building a roster around a coaching style,
Mm-hmm.
that, we want to be long, athletic, deep, and get after teams for 94 feet and we're going to run a different style of offense. And so I think our fans are going to be really excited. I know in practice, I'm like, wow, this looks different. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
coach speak; it looks very different. So I'm excited. I'm really excited.
Uh, I'm juggling through Hagen and game related questions. Maybe just talk in general about your sense of the experience at Hagen and where it can go and maybe where we fall short.
Yeah, we've got to get better. We've got to continue to get better. I think we have done some things that have improved the atmosphere. We need our fans to show up, and I know people aren't excited about the schedule, but um, we have got to pack Hagen Arena. We've
Yeah.
got to bring energy to Hagen Arena. And if there's one thing, like what can we do to help? You don't if you don't have money to give to the NIL, or if that's not your thing philosophically, I get it, but show up to games because it's such an advantage. We've actually had a really good home record in Hagen the
Mm-hmm.
last couple of years, and that's with only selling out a couple games. And so, the goal this year, we've improved our digital marketing. We've improved, our ticket office. When I got here, we had one person in the ticket office. We now have three full time, including two people who do nothing but sell. And so we've got to pack the arena. That's one thing. I'm still pleased with the addition of beer sales from a few years ago, but I'm really pushing Aramark hard on our offerings. So I see the hawk wrap, I see the veggie dog, I see your recommendations. I'm meeting with Aramark regularly, and we'll continue to push some variety. I'm really excited about the Hawk and Barrel coming
Mm-hmm.
back, and I had lunch there today. In fact, I have lunch there most days if anyone wants to come join me. I think that's going to be a great spot for our fans pre and post game. So, I mean, the things we can do from a fan experience perspective, they just get better and better with the more people there are in the arena. When it's a packed arena, it's a tough place to play, and we want to continue to build on that. But I think some of those amenities, we're working. Jack Jumper here is working on a new way for
Hmm.
our fans to get new gear. I could not be more excited to unveil our new gear store, which we will do in the coming month or so. So I think that will be something that excites our fans. Um, yeah, I'll stop there, Joe. I know we're getting a little short on time.
Yeah, and I remiss in not answering the very first question that came in, and I
Yeah,
hope
yeah.
I hope that John and his 8-year-old son Timmy are still up and that it's not past his bedtime. Uh, can the A10 send two teams? I would say not only absolutely. I think that this year there will be multiple Atlantic 10 teams in the tournament. VCU is very good. St. Louis is very good, and they think they're even better than they are. Dayton is always a factor, and I would say I would name two Jesuit schools as dark horses, Loyola, Chicago. I don't think you can ever bet against a school that has a 106-year-old chaplain with a direct pipeline to the Almighty. And um, I think the Hawks are going to overachieve as well. I'll be interested to see what the voting is at League Media Day next week. So I hope that answers your question, 8-year-old Timmy and Jill. You may not know this, but years and years and years ago, on a coach's radio show, we had a young Timmy from Wilmington call in every week. And this is not that Timmy, because that Timmy is a grown up and came on to be the Hawk mascot.
I love that. I love that.
So no pressure there, young Timmy, but we expect to see you in the costume in about 15 years. So, uh, Lord willing, we'll all live to see that and hang
That's
some banners
awesome. That's
between now and
awesome.
then. Uh,
Joe, one more
yeah,
question I want to look at is, let's see, there's something. Oh, when is our schedule going to be announced? I just received word from the A10 today that our league schedule will come out on Thursday.
yeah, I got this. Yeah, I heard that
Okay.
also. Yeah,
Okay. So
yeah.
this Thursday, September 25, and then as soon as we get the contracts for the two games, we'll have our complete schedule. And just to make sure everyone saw, those replacement games will definitely be D1, and will be other
Yeah,
schools who are in a similar predicament, if I may say that.
you may. And maybe we should close with this. And I know we didn't get to everything, but maybe that's a good thing. Uh, I think this is excellent availability for you as a PR person and former staff person. I think the number of people logged in and saying questions uh, connote that, and uh, hopefully we can get Steve Donahue and other coaches and other administrators at the university because uh, it makes people feel connected, and you're good at it.
I'd be happy to do these regularly. I'd be happy to, I like telling our story. And, one thing I'd like to end on, Joe, we talked about the goal of getting into the NCAA tournament. But I'd be remiss if I didn't comment on what fabulous young men we have. I mean, I just, in the past several years, watching their professional postgraduate success
Mm-hmm.
in whatever field they choose. Um, I hate to say the lack of negativity, but the lack of negativity. There's not been one behavioral or difficult issue. I mean, we have great young men who I think just, really bust their butts to represent this university the best they can. And, really have a respect for the place and the history. And I'm really proud of the people associated with our program. So, the goal isn't just to have great people. The goal is to have great people who win. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, I think we've been really blessed with some outstanding young men.
Well, appreciate your time, Jack Jumper, for setting it up, and let's do it again.
Love it. Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, everyone, for joining. The Hawk will never die, and I cannot wait to see you and get your eyes on this team.
Good night, everybody.